Hi guys, my name is Dakota. For my project I did a comparison of Walmart and Publix microbial environment. There are more than 1,000 different strands of bacteria living on our skins at a time. Not all of that bacteria is bad. Actually, some of it helps us in our defense of other bad bacteria. However, the more bacteria you're exposed to, the higher your risk are for getting sick. So with this in mind, a large majority of the United States relies on getting their food from grocery stores, with more than 32 million Americans visiting a grocery store each day. So this puts grocery stores into an awkward spot. If there are any diseases out there, they most likely will make it into a grocery store at some point, which is why they're a good location to probe. For this experiment, I chose to look at Publix and Walmart since they're the most popular in South Carolina. So for my materials, I used 10 sterile swabs, 10 Petri plates, 10 Nutri-Agar vials, and I went to Walmart and Publix. Each of the sterile swabs was for each individual Petri plate. After I swabbed an object, I would throw that one away, and each object got its own plate. At Walmart and Publix, I swabbed the handle on the grocery cart, the scale on the produce scales, and in the bathrooms, the soap dispenser handle. I swabbed the soap dispenser handle. And for the pharmacies at both of these locations, I swabbed the counter for the checkout aisle. And then for the dairy fridges, I just swabbed the handles on those fridges as well. And then as far as the methods goes, I prepared the agar plates by heating up the Nutri-Agar, and then once that was liquefied, I poured that into the Petri plates and let those solidify. And after those cooled down and solidified, I visited each store, and at each of the stores I swabbed those items and wiped onto the Petri plates. After all 5 objects were swabbed, they were labeled, and then I went to the other store, did the same thing, came back to my house, and I incubated them in a guest bedroom closet at 70 degrees with no light. The no light was just to save on electricity. There was no reasoning behind doing that. But then they were stored and incubated for 4 days. After 4 days, they were recollected to measure, and they were measured based on their colony numbers and their color for variation. So this was Walmart's produce scale. It saw a total of 76 colonies after the 4 days, and then there were 9 different colony strands that was based off of again, the color and the texture of the colonies. Walmart's bathroom saw 12 colonies. It's kind of hard to see here. There's at the bottom left a bunch of tiny different colonies, but there's only 4 different colony strands. Again, that was on the soap dispenser handle. As far as the pharmacy saw quite a bit of growth. There was 23 different colonies, or 23 total colonies, 7 different colonies based on color and texture. The dairy handle and the dairy aisle saw 5 total colonies with 4 different colony strands based on that color and that texture again. The grocery cart actually saw less than I expected, but it saw 4 total colonies, and each of the colonies that were there had a different color and a different texture. So of the 5 objects that were swabbed at Walmart, the produce scale by far saw the most colony numbers and quantity with 76, and additionally also the most variation with 9 different colonies based on their texture and color. But as far as the least amount of colonies that was seen was in the grocery cart. But the dairy handle, the grocery cart, and the soap dispenser all had a pretty low number in variation. So this was the produce scale for Publix. It saw a total of 44 colonies and a very low number of only 6 different colony strands. And for Publix, for their bathroom, it's kind of hard to see here in this picture, but they saw a total of 4 colonies, and each of those colonies were distinct from another. They had differences in color and differences in texture. For the pharmacy saw 5 total colonies, and they were all distinct as well in the texture and the color. Publix, in their dairy section, the dairy handle saw a total of 5 colonies as well, with 5 different colony strains based on that texture and that color once again. And for their grocery cart, they also saw 4 total colonies and 4 different colony strands as well. So although those 2 colonies right there on the right hand side of this Petri plate look very similar, the texture of the one on the far right is quite different. So there was 4 different colony strands in total. So for Publix, the object that saw the most colony number in total was also the produce scale, and it also had the most variation as well. However, the least amount of colony growth was seen on the grocery carts and the soap dispenser. They saw 4 colonies, and all the colonies were distinct from one another. So with comparing these two side by side, Walmart pretty much across the board had more colonies than Publix did in all regards, except for the dairy handle, which they both saw quite a low number. Yet their produce scale is almost double what was grown on the Publix produce scale, and the soap dispenser and the pharmacy both reflect that as well. For the comparison of their variation, actually kind of even here. The produce scale still at Walmart still saw quite a bit of variation compared to Publix. Along with their pharmacy, they saw quite a bit of variation. But as far as the dairy handle, the grocery cart, and the bathroom, they had a consistent number of variation with their colony number. So for the discussion and conclusion, some shortcomings that I could mention is before this pandemic, I planned on doing further testing to try to identify some of the bacteria here. That would have given a better story to tell about, because again, not all bacteria is bad. Some of it is actually beneficial for you. But the identification of this bacteria would have told a better story to tell as far as which store you would want to avoid based on just, the health threat, especially like what's going on right now. Another limiting factor was the amount of agar I had access to. More agar would have allowed more reoccurring samples that would have ruled out strays, for instance, grabbing a grocery cart that somebody was really careless with and got quite dirty. But as far as the implications go, Publix had much less variation in their produce scale and their pharmacy. Their variation in their other departments with the soap dispenser and the grocery cart, they were on par with their colony number. So when looking at which store is possibly more beneficial to go to just based on this health risk, I would recommend Publix because of their decreased amount of colony numbers and the decreased amount of colony numbers in their produce scale and the pharmacy. The the grocery cart also saw a decreased amount. So yeah, thank you guys for your time, and y'all have a happy social distancing.